John Marion Tierney, born March 25, 1953, is an American journalist and author who has worked for The New York Times since 1990. A self-described contrarian, Tierney is a critic of environmentalism, the science establishment, big government, and calls for limiting emissions of carbon dioxide. Early in personal life, Tierney was born in 1953 outside Chicago. Grew up in the Midwest, South America and Pittsburgh. Quote, he graduated from Yale University in 1976. As of 1998, he was married to Dana Tierney, with whom he had one child, Luke. Career. After graduating from college, Tierney was a newspaper reporter for 4 years. First at the Bergen Record in New Jersey and then at the Washington Star. Starting in 1980, he spent 10 years in magazine journalism writing for such magazines as Atlantic Monthly, Discover, Esquire, Health, National Geographic Traveler, New York, Newsweek, Outside, Rolling Stone. Tierney began working at the New York Times in 1990 as a general assignment reporter in the Metro section. Tierney writes a science column, Findings, for The Times. He previously wrote the Tierney Lab blog for The Times. In 2005, Tierney began to write for The Times op-ed page, and as of 2015 his writings appeared in both the Times op-ed and Findings science column. He also writes for the conservative City Journal. Views. Tierney described his Tierney Lab as guided by 2 founding principles. Just because an idea appeals to a lot of people doesn't mean it's wrong. But that's a good working theory. His column about New York, the big city, ran in the New York Times Magazine and the Metro section from 1994 to 2002. His criticism of rent stabilization, the war on drugs, Amtrak and compulsory recycling, have been described as questioning some of the complacent shibboleths of urban liberalism. His 1996 article, Recycling is Garbage, broke the New York Times Magazine's hate mail record and was praised by libertarians for bringing libertarian ideas to America's big government Bible. Critics complained that in the article he quoted not a single representative of the recycling industry, but did cite the head of an environmental consulting business for hire to solid waste companies. In a 2001 column, Tierney cited a study suggesting that global warming would boost the U.S. economy. Tierney identifies himself as a libertarian and has become increasingly identified with libertarianism. Joseph J. Romm has written that Tierney is one of the influential but misinformed skeptics who have helped prevent the U.S. from taking action on climate change. In his 2007 book, Hell and High Water, Romm cites, and claims to refute, what he calls Tierney's misinformation. Columbia Journalism Review complains Tierney has a tendency to support his point of view using sources with a clear ideological or special interest agenda, without properly identifying them. Quote, in 2007 Tierney wrote a column claiming that Silent Spring, Rachel Carson's 1962 book on the detrimental effects of pesticides on the environment, is a hodgepodge of science and junk science, whose rhetoric still drowns out real science, such as the work of agricultural bacteriologist Ira Baldwin. Among those who have criticized the column for alleged errors of fact and misrepresentation are Eric M. Conway, Naomi Oreskes, and Merrill Guzner. In 2016, Tierney criticized President Barack Obama for politicized science to advance his agenda, and appointees in the Obama administration for junk science, or no science, to justify misbegotten crusades against dietary salt, trans fats, and electronic cigarettes. They cited phony statistics to spread myths about a gender pay gap and a rape crisis on college campuses. Quote, books. God is My Broker, a comic novel written in parody of financial and spiritual self-help book, was written in collaboration with novelist Christopher Buckley. Willpower. Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. Co-wrote in 2011. Along with Florida State University psychologist Roy F. Baumeister. They state that self-control and willpower function analogously to muscles. Thus, they write that willpower can be exhausted from overuse but generally speaking is strengthened through exercise. Exercise that modern people tend to disregard. Publishers Weekly praised the book as a very fine work that is clear and succinct, as well as based on solid research. The Best Case Scenario Handbook. A parody, September 16, 2002. A parody of the popular Worst Case Scenario Handbook series. Awards. 1998-99. New York News Publishers Association. 1. Distinguished Column Writing Award. 1988. American Association for the Advancement of Science Westinghouse Science Journalism Award. For a cover story in Newsweek. The Search for Adam and Eve. Quote, 1983. American Institute of Physics United States Steel Foundation Science Writing Award. See also. Simmons Tierney Bet. Scientific Opinion on Climate Change. Public Opinion on Climate Change. Biography from the New York Times. Sept. 14. 2005 interview with Reason magazine. Recent Tierney columns at the New York Times. Meet John Tierney. New York Times biographical video interview.